do we know that anyone has emotions? What is neuroscience doing to demonstrate that?
The real most powerful evidence that animals do have emotions is that wherever in the brain you activate an emotional response, and there are many of them that you can activate, and you ask, does the animal care? The animal always cares, whether they have that kind of experience or not. So the electricity into the brain is only doing something unknown, but we know you have to be in very specific parts and very ancient parts, the parts that we share with our other fellow animals, at least the warm-blooded animals, mammals and birds, and probably cold-blooded vertebrates also. They all have a very similar organization in these lower parts of the brain where you activate emotions. And the animal, when you put them in that artificial state, will either turn it on or off. It never ignores it. So they can be rewards and punishments. And all of a sudden we begin to understand what the behaviors we're talking about. They use rewards and punishments in the world to train animals, but of course the reward and punishment is something in the brain. So we now have a way to look at some of the most primitive and most important experiences. Why are they important? Because we have an area of medicine devoted to that. It's called psychiatry. Psychiatry is a doctor trying to treat emotional imbalances. So mania is excessive happiness, no reason to be happy, but everything's great. Depression is just the opposite. Everything is bad. And what's bad is inside the brain. So for depression, the most important question that one can ask is, why does depression feel so bad? If you can't ask that question from an animal, how can you ever know what a bad feeling is? You can't. So the importance of this kind of affective neuroscience is it gives us a tool to finally probe feelings scientifically. And now if we can work out the details of these systems, we can answer the question, why does depression feel so bad? We can also answer the question, why is this mania so free-floating happiness? We have a whole spectrum of anxiety disorders, and one of the worst kinds of anxiety is the separation anxiety that I talked about. People have panic attacks. We made the argument that the panic attack is not a fear system going off. That's anxiety. The panic attack is what a little child feels when they're lost. They've lost their center of gravity, the ground of their existence. That mother-infant bond is that thread of security that the child cannot grow up without. Because we know that children without that bond have depression later in life, all kinds of emotional problems. We've got a very kind of subtle disorder called borderline personality disorder. My goodness, that's probably the largest one. No one knows what the emotion is, but usually it's a sense of insecurity with themselves. So they're always trying to get other people to give them what they need to feel good. So they're searching all the time for security. So that's probably a mild form of separation anxiety. That's chronic. That's gone up to the cortex. Okay? The panic attack is down below. You just lose control. The borderline personality has learned to control the power, but it's still percolating upstairs, and they're developing life strategies to give them security. So that's one hypothesis. Right now we can ask the question, has psychiatric medicine been identified through our capacity to truly understand the brain? And the answer is no. And we are using antidepressants that are very ineffective. That's why there's so many of them. This doesn't work, try it again. Try something else. When in the last couple of years, the government did a multi-center, multi-billion dollar, might be too much, but a big study. It was called STAR-D, and they used one of the best antidepressants on the market. It turned out 28% of the people went into remission. Now, if you had an antibiotic like that, you wouldn't be very happy. So, we work on depression. I'm very involved with supporting depression research. I'm a co-research director of the Hope for Depression Research Foundation in New York, and we have taken a very revolutionary strategy that you have to have animal models, they're called preclinical models, where we actually understand the neural circuitry of depression. We can actually ask the animal, how happy are you? By measuring their happy sounds. How anxious or distressed are you? There's another sound the animals make when it's not pain caused, it's just anxiety caused. These have neural circuits that we have mapped. Okay? Someone's got to map them. That's big time science. And once you know where the circuit is, then you can ask, what is the chemistry in the circuit? Now you're really doing science. You're no longer in the land of chance and serendipity. So I think we already have great antidepressants that aren't being used. If you want to treat depression, you should do two things. You should block the negative chemistries in the brain, and you should enhance the positive chemistries in the brain. No one's doing that yet. That is a novel idea. And just by understanding the circuitry, there's already lots of possibilities.
Are you afraid that codifying emotional behavior will have people in sciences, but certainly people outside of science and the humanities, saying that you're taking all the poetry out of human feeling? And what do you say in response?
I think my answer is that it depends on the kind of people we are, as it always does. And if we think that solving some small problems, and these are small problems, solves the whole of the mystery, I think we're deluding ourselves. There will be plenty of mystery left forever. Forever. And that's the
Not forever.
Yes, forever. Because the universe, nature, is infinitely complex. Infinitely
Not
complex.
infinitely.
I would say, in all practical words, it's infinite, because every time you look closer, there is more complexity. And we get to the point where our capacity to see further just isn't there. Okay? I think part of education is understanding the limits of knowledge. If you don't appreciate the limits of knowledge and you have the hubris of absolute knowledge, then I think you're a very dangerous person. And that's part of education. And, we're on a grand journey, and we can make that journey much richer in terms of true understanding. Or we can pretend that we're doing more than we really are. And there's been plenty of that. For instance, the behaviors that I talked about for 100 years, they pretended that they knew more than they really did. And it closed the book on many important questions. My motivation was always, what is the nature of an emotion? That was the beginning, and I never dropped it. People coaxed me that this was a stupid question that you couldn't ask. And I said, well, I think I can ask it, and I think we made a lot of progress. My hope is that eventually there'll be a bunch of young people doing the same thing, which is studying emotions.